Welcome everyone to ByJash channel. All right, get ready because today we're diving deep into Atomic Habits by James Clear. We're going to unpack some seriously cool ideas about how those tiny changes can lead to some really remarkable results.
You know, this book isn't just about making or breaking those habits. It's more about understanding how those small actions we take can really shape us into who we become.
Okay, so no dramatic overnight transformations, right? It's
Yeah.
not like what we see on reality TV.
Nope, not at all. Think of it more like those tiny, tiny 1% improvements, but they're compounded over time. Imagine, what if you could get 1% better every single day for a whole year?
Well, I like where this is going.
You would end up being almost 38 times better by the end of that year.
Wow, that's a seriously strong argument for consistency. But where do we even start?
Well, Clear argues that any lasting change has to start with what he calls an identity shift. It's not just about wanting to be different.
Ooh, okay.
It's about changing those beliefs that you have about yourself.
So it's not enough to just say, I want to be a writer.
What?
I actually have to believe I am a writer, even before I've, written a single page.
Exactly. Because every action that you take, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. So if you write every day, what are you doing? You're casting those votes for your writer identity.
I love that. It's like we're building our desired selves one little choice at a time. And this reminds me of that concept of the habit line, where a behavior becomes so automatic you don't even need willpower anymore.
Precisely. The more we repeat a behavior, the more ingrained it gets in our neural pathways and eventually becomes part of who we are.
Okay, so how do we get to that effortless action part? I know Clear outlines those 4 laws of behavior change.
Right, and he calls them laws for a reason, because they consistently influence human behavior. And the first law, make it obvious.
Okay, meaning we need to raise awareness of the habits we actually want to build. So how do we bring those non-conscious actions into the light?
One strategy is pointing and calling. It's this technique that Japanese railway workers use to reduce errors.
Oh,
They
right.
literally point at signals and call them out loud.
Okay.
It helps them stay focused and avoid those mindless mistakes.
Okay, so I may not be, pointing at my coffee pot each morning, but I get the principle.
Right.
What are some other ways we can make those desired habits more obvious?
Well, Clear suggests using implementation intentions, which is a fancy way of saying plan those habits in advance. You decide what you'll do, when you'll do it, and where you'll do it.
Ah, okay.
For example, I will meditate for 5 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room.
So no more guesswork.
Exactly.
And fewer excuses, too. I like that. So what's that second law?
Make it attractive. We're way more likely to repeat those behaviors if they are enjoyable, rewarding.
Right, but what if the habit itself isn't that fun? I mean, I know that exercise is good for me, but I don't exactly jump for joy when I think about going to the gym.
I hear you. And that's where temptation bundling can come in handy.
Okay, basically link an activity that you want to do with one that you need to do. So, for example, you could only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're exercising.
Oh, so I'm making that less desirable activity the gateway to the one I actually crave.
Yeah.
I could see how that would make it a lot more appealing.
Exactly. It's about using anticipation and reward to make those, have-to-do habits more attractive. What do you think the third law is? Well, if we've made it obvious and we made it attractive, I'm going to guess the next step is to make it easy.
You got it. The third law is all about reducing that friction, and making it as effortless as possible to do the right thing.
Right. Because if it takes too much effort, we're less likely to stick with it. It's like those bad habits,
Yeah.
Like endlessly scrolling through social media. Those are so hard to break because they're just so easy.
Exactly. So we flip that script and make our good habits just as effortless.
Okay, how?
One of the most powerful ways is through environment design.
Oh, so setting up our surroundings in a way that actually supports our goals.
Exactly. So if you want to read more, what do? Keep a book on your nightstand. You want to eat healthier? Have a bowl of fruit on the counter. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before.
I see. It's like you're removing those decision points where our willpower might fail us.
No.
Now, I've heard about this 2-minute rule. Does that fit in with making things easy?
Absolutely. The 2-minute rule is all about shrinking those habits down to a ridiculously easy starting point.
Okay, so instead of saying write a chapter, it's write for 2 minutes.
Exactly. And instead of saying clean the entire kitchen, it becomes wash the dishes for 2 minutes.
So it's about tricking ourselves into getting started, because once we take that first step, we're more likely to keep going.
Exactly. It's a great way to overcome inertia and build momentum.
This is making me think about all the times I've set these huge goals and then, felt overwhelmed before I even started. Maybe I need to embrace the 2-minute rule more.
It can definitely be a game changer. It's about making those first steps so small and manageable that they're almost impossible to resist.
Okay, so we made it obvious, attractive, easy. What's the final piece?
Make it satisfying.
Rewards.
Yeah.
Right. But how do we, bridge the gap between the effort and the payoff? Especially since the rewards for good habits often take a while to show up.
One strategy is to use what's called reinforcement. You give yourself an immediate reward after completing your habit. Finished your workout, treat yourself to a smoothie, hit your writing goal for the day, enjoy an episode of your favorite show.
Oh, so it's like giving yourself a pat on the back for a job well done.
Yeah.
What are some other ways to make those good habits feel rewarding?
Well, Claire talks about the paperclip strategy, which is basically you move a paperclip from one jar to another every time you finish your habit. It sounds pretty simple,
Yeah.
but actually moving that paperclip gives you a visual representation of your progress.
I love that. It's a tangible way to track those wins,
Yeah.
see our efforts adding up.
Exactly, and it creates a sense of satisfaction, accomplishment, makes you want to repeat those good behaviors.
Wow, this has been so insightful. I'm already rethinking how I approach building habits.
And we're just getting started. In the next part of this deep dive, we're going to explore even more powerful strategies for making those good habits stick, even when life gets crazy.
Welcome back. I'm still thinking about all those habit hacking insights from the last part. It's like we're finally figuring out how to make lasting changes,
Yeah, the exciting thing about Atomic Habits is that it gives us this practical framework to understand how those habits actually work. Like, why do we do the things that we do?
And one thing that really stuck with me is that our environment shapes our behavior a lot more than we realize. Like Claire was saying, willpower is overrated.
Oh, absolutely. It's not about being a disciplined person, but about creating an environment that is disciplined. If you make it easier to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing, your good habits, they practically become inevitable.
So instead of relying on willpower, we should be focusing on designing our world to support our goals.
Exactly. Think of it this way. You're trying to eat healthier, but your kitchen is full of junk food. It's a constant uphill battle, right?
Yeah.
But if you fill your fridge with fruits and veggies and healthy snacks, it makes it so much easier to make those good choices.
It's like you remove the temptation altogether. Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. And Clear suggests a strategy called habit shaping to help us ease into those changes. It's about starting with a teeny tiny version of the habit and gradually making it a little harder over time.
So it's like that saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. No need to overhaul our entire lives overnight. Just make those small changes that add up.
Exactly. Imagine you want to start writing every day. Instead of aiming for 1,000 words right away, just start with 5 minutes each day.
Okay.
And then as that gets comfortable, you gradually increase it.
This makes me realize how often I've set myself up for failure by trying to do way too much too soon. I just get overwhelmed and give up before I even have a chance.
It's a pretty common mistake, We overestimate what we can do in the short term and underestimate what we can achieve in the long term. The key is consistency. And that often means starting small and building momentum slowly.
What about accountability? Does that help us stay on track?
Well, for sure. Sharing your goals with others, having someone to check in with, celebrating those wins together, it can give you a huge boost in motivation. That's why workout buddies, writing groups, study partners, they're all so effective.
I've definitely found that having a workout buddy makes a big difference in my consistency. Knowing someone's counting on me makes me way less likely to skip a workout.
Right, it creates that sense of social support and, a little bit of obligation. That can be super motivating. And Clear even takes it a step further with what he calls the habit contract,
Right.
where you actually write down your goals, the consequences if you don't meet them, and then you share it with someone who's going to hold you accountable.
Wow, that sounds serious.
It can be really effective for people who are, really driven by that external accountability. But even without a formal contract, just having that person to check in with and share your progress can make a world of difference.
And speaking of progress, Clear really emphasizes how important it is to reflect on our habits and track our wins. It's not enough to just go through the motions, right? We need to be aware of what's working and what isn't.
Exactly. Reflecting helps us learn from our experiences and make those adjustments. Clear highlights the power of visual measurement, using things like habit trackers, charts, to see our progress over time.
There's something so satisfying about checking off those boxes or seeing those lines on a graph go up and up, like a visual representation of your success.
It can be really motivating. Even those tiny wins, when you track them consistently, they create a sense of momentum and make you feel like you're moving in the right direction.
That reminds me of how Olympic athletes, they track every little thing in their training, from the number of reps they do to how well they sleep. They get that even the tiniest improvements can make a huge difference over time.
Right, and that brings us back to the idea of identity we talked about earlier. The more you track those habits, the more you see yourself acting in line with your desired identity, and the stronger that identity gets.
So if I consistently track my workouts and see myself showing up at the gym every day, it becomes easier to believe I am an athlete, even if I'm just starting out.
Exactly. Those actions, even if they're small, when they're repeated, they reinforce your belief in yourself. And then it's easier to stick with those habits. It's like building a positive feedback loop of success.
Okay, this is all making a lot of sense. But what about those times when life gets in the way,
Yeah.
We're human. We get busy, we get stressed, and sometimes we just don't feel like it.
I hear that. And that's where Clear's never miss twice rule is really helpful. It recognizes that life happens and we're not going to be perfect all the time.
So it's okay to miss a day here and there.
Exactly. The key is to never miss 2 days in a row. If you skip your workout one day, get back on track the next. If you miss your writing goal, don't let it turn into a week-long slump. Consistency, it's about the long game, not about being perfect every single day.
That takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
So it's not about beating ourselves up over a slip-up. It's about getting back on track as quickly as possible.
Right, because the more consistent you are, the stronger those habits become, and then the less you have to rely on willpower and motivation.
Yeah.
It's like you're building a system for success that runs itself.
And what about those days where you know in advance it's going to be crazy busy or stressful? Should we just accept that our good habits will fly out the window?
Not necessarily. Clear says have a backup plan for those times when your routine gets disrupted. If you have a late meeting and can't make it to the gym, have a shorter workout ready to go at home.
Oh, okay.
If you're traveling and can't get to your usual writing spot, pack a notebook and commit to writing for at least 10 minutes on the plane.
So it's about being proactive, planning ahead for those challenges instead of just reacting to them.
Exactly. Having a plan in place so even when life throws those curveballs, you can keep moving forward with your goals.
This is giving me a lot to think about in terms of how I build my own habits. I'm feeling more equipped to create those positive changes I've been wanting.
And there's more to come. In the next part, we'll explore how to make those habits not just consistent, but also truly meaningful and fulfilling.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into atomic habits. It's been quite a journey, right? Exploring the science behind lasting change and all those tools for becoming better versions of ourselves.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn about how habits shape our lives, who we are, and even where we end up.
Yeah, in the last part, we talked about being consistent and how to design our environment and routines to help us reach our goals. But how do we make sure those habits are not just, something we do, but something that really means something? How do we make sure we're not just going through the motions, but living a life that, fits our values and what we want?
That's where finding your own unique genius comes in.
Okay.
Clearing encourages us to figure out what we're naturally good at, like where our skills and passions come together. He calls it finding that game where the odds are in your favor.
Oh, like that saying, play to your strengths. So if I'm, naturally drawn to creative stuff, I should focus on building habits that support writing or painting or music.
Exactly. Or if you're a natural problem solver, you might build habits around learning new things, exploring different fields, or coming up with new solutions to problems. The important thing is to find the activities that feel, almost effortless and rewarding,
Right.
where you can use your natural talents and really make a difference.
This reminds me of how Clear talks about the Polgar sisters, who were raised to be chess champions. They'd spend hours each day playing and studying chess. Sounds kind of intense.
It does.
But they loved it.
And that's because they found a game that matched their natural skills and what they were interested in. The way they were raised, their dad's unique approach to education made chess more than just a game for them. It was a huge part of their lives, who they were.
It's a great example of how the right habits in the right setting can have amazing results. But what if you're still figuring out what you're good at and what you're passionate about? How do you find that game where you have the advantage.
Clear suggests being open to exploring and trying things out. He talks about this explore-exploit trade-off. It's about balancing, the need to try new things and see what you're good at, and then focusing on what works best once you've found it.
Okay, I think I'm following.
It's like dating. You go on a lot of dates to get a sense of what you like and don't like, right? Who you click with. And then when you find someone you really connect with, you move into a relationship and you focus on making that connection stronger.
That's a great analogy.
So in the exploration phase, you're casting a wide net, trying lots of things, learning new skills, and seeing what really grabs your attention and gets you excited.
Okay, so once you've figured out where you really shine, then you shift to the exploit part.
Exactly. That's where you hone those skills, build those habits, and really make the most of your talents.
Got it.
It's a process that's always changing, and it needs you to be curious and able to make decisions. You need to be open to new experiences and possibilities, but also ready to commit to the areas where you see the most potential to grow and feel fulfilled.
This makes me realize maybe I haven't given myself enough chances to just explore and experiment. I've been so focused on hitting certain goals that I've kind of forgotten about finding those things that really light me up inside.
It happens a lot. We get so caught up in trying to achieve things and get approval from others that we lose sight of what truly brings us joy and makes us feel good.
So how do we find that balance?
Yeah.
How do we create a life that feels like it's really ours, not just what someone else thinks we should be doing?
Clear says that it's really important to reflect and review. He tells us to regularly step back and ask, what's working? What's not? What do I need to change? What have I learned?
So it's not just about setting goals and going through the motions. It's about paying attention to what's happening, listening to that inner voice and making changes as you go.
Exactly. It's about making self-awareness a habit and then using what you learn to guide the choices you make and the things you do.
Yeah.
Clear talks about how top performers in all kinds of fields, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, they're all constantly reflecting and getting better.
It's like those high-performance athletes who keep detailed training logs, tracking their workouts, their food, how they recover. They know that even small tweaks can make a big difference over time.
And we can all do that even if we're not training for the Olympics. We can all benefit from this idea of constantly trying to improve. Whether you use a notebook, an app, or just take a few minutes to think about your day, the key is to make it something you do regularly.
This deep dive into atomic habits has been so insightful and inspiring. We've been given all these new tools for understanding ourselves, shaping our behavior, and creating the lives we really want.
And the best part, this is only the beginning. Self-improvement, it never really ends. There's always room to grow, learn, and change for the better.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and taking us on this incredible journey.
My pleasure.
And for everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a sense of what's possible and empowered you to take those small, consistent steps that can lead to amazing things. Remember, you have the power to change your life one habit at a time.